Welcome, NBA fans, to my favorite part of the week, and that's King's Court, brought to you by www.sports-kings.com. Here's the logo. Don't forget the dash. This week's show is going to be very good. I'm your host, Andy. Along with me is Brandon. Brandon is a contributor at Pass the Pill. That's our Sports Kings basketball portion. He'll be heading up the launch of SK Phoenix, which is coming soon, or Phoenix SK. That'll be right around the 1st of March. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing well, thank you, Andy. I want to say it's great to be back for the third week in a row for me. And we met with the guys last night for Phoenix SK, and we're excited, man. We're ready to go. And also, I just want to say, if you guys missed the new Godzilla trailer, check out the new Godzilla trailer. Holy cow.
And Brandon, for everyone like myself and from Western New York area watching this show, give us a little taste of how warm it is in Phoenix today.
Oh, man. I would say relaxing weather here is an understatement. It's looking outside now. Looks like summertime. Put on your flip-flops and put on some shorts and walk outside and drink a beer.
And our next intelligent mind is none other than Michael from DC Sports Kings. Michael, how's it going?
Intelligence, an understatement, man. No, great. No, hey.
It's the glasses.
It's got to be. Yeah, no. I was in Brandon's world earlier this week. It's nice 75 and sunny, and now it's a little 48 and rainy. But hey, you'll get used to that. But like you said, Andy, it's going to be a great show. I think our boy DeMarcus Cousins has been watching too much of Kevin Costner's Pompeii a little bit, though. But we'll get into that.
All right, so without further ado, we'll jump right into our first topic. This is kind of going to be a topic with a A, B, and C, as we are talking NBA buyouts. We might as well start with Glenn Davis, since he's the only one of the three players we're going to mention who's actually went through the buyout process, and he's now found a new home in LA with the Clippers. Glenn Davis was kind of one of those players in Orlando. Speaking from a Magic fan, that's me. We do exist.
Yeah.
He was really only brought into Orlando with the Brandon Bass swap years ago he was kind of a means to an end to keep Dwight Howard, because they were at that point Orlando was in desperation mode, doing whatever they could to try to keep Howard on board in the pinstripes, and it didn't really work. Davis has been a nice player. I mean, I like his game. I like Big Baby. I think he's a heck of a defender. And I do remember that playoff series that year when Dwight Howard was out with a back injury. Big Baby, over 5 games against Roy Hibbert of the Indiana Pacers, because he did play center in that series, averaged 19 points and 9 rebounds a game, giving up probably 5 inches. So, Big Baby's impact. We could talk a little bit about, what we think about him landing in LA. Is that a good fit, etc. We'll go to you first, Michael. What do you think about this?
Well, obviously it reunites Big Baby with his old coach in Boston, Doc Rivers. So
Glenn.
There's obviously some similarities there. Obviously, Rivers knows how he's going to be able to use Big Baby. He's going to be able to be in that rotation. I'm anxious to see what he's going to do in Lob City. You never know. We could see Big Baby getting above that rim and slamming something down.
No, he won't.
You never know these days. But I think he's going to bring a nice defensive aspect to L.A., something that my Lakers will never see in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good fit for him. He may not be a starter. He's going to be a guy that's probably going to come off the bench, may spot start every once in a while. But he's going to be another big body in L.A., and I think that's going to be a good fit for him.
Brandon, your thoughts on Big Baby Glenn Davis being reunited with Glenn Rivers?
First off, I agree with both of you right off the back. I really like what you said about, the desperation move when it came to the whole Dwight Howard thing. Me personally, I'm excited for Glenn Big Baby Davis. Obviously, the Magic and a bunch of other teams aren't going to the playoffs, and I'm glad that he's kind of out of that situation. And I also just looked it up. One of my really underrated players in the league, Brian Mullins, was a former Clipper. He got traded, and I feel like that will open it up. I was excited for Mullins to go to the Clippers. I'm assuming it didn't work out because he's not on that team anymore. So this is just going to be it's a win-win in my opinion, and that's what's really exciting about these buyouts. Hopefully, Glenn will be in the spot to where he can do damage with teams and be productive, really.
Well, the thing I like about it, especially coming from the aspect of me being a Magic fan, is that, I like Glenn Davis, but it just wasn't the place for him anymore. I mean, he was averaging, he was hurt a little bit this season, so he was averaging like 12 and 6, but I do like it because it opens up more playing time for Tobias Harris or an Andrew Nicholson, some of the younger guys. I mean, Glenn Davis is 28. He's approaching, he just turned 28, but he's getting up there. Orlando's got a lot of young, early 20s type players. They still need to shred guys like Jameer Nelson. But for Glenn Davis, I like the move a lot because, like Michael said, he'll be a reserve to Blake Griffin, which is good because Baby brings a lot of things that the Clippers don't have. He's a very capable on-the-ball defender at the 4, even at the 5. I mean, despite his height, he's only about 6'8", but he's got that wide frame. He plays tremendous defense. He's a hustle player. He's a spark plug. I really can't say enough good things about Glenn Davis. It was kind of hard to watch him in Orlando because, the intensity he plays with that we saw when he was in Boston was just like too much for a team that's going to win 20 games. And, to see that be wasted, he doesn't play. I mean, he wasn't one of those guys who went out there and said, well, we're only going to win 10 games this season. I'm just going to relax. He's out there drooling all over the place, diving for loose balls, banging guys up. And you have to appreciate a player like that. And I think he's going to kind of bring something to the Clippers that they don't have. They have a lot of length and athleticism. He's not necessarily long or athletic, but he's stout. He's got a big body, and he's going to be – I think he's going to be a pretty solid addition for them. If the next guy was a guy who's not yet bought out, but they've been talking about it ever since he was traded. He was a trade deadline deal. That was Danny Granger from the Indiana Pacers to the Philadelphia 76ers for Evan Turner. Good spot for Evan Turner to land. Bad spot for Danny Granger to land. Granger's kind of upset about this, and we understand this, going from, debatably the best team in the league to possibly the worst team in the league, and he doesn't want any part of it. I'm sure the Sixers really, don't have any time for an older, aging player who's injury prone, who, isn't really on board mentally with them anyways. So this seems like a good move if they're able to buy him out. Thoughts on this? We'll go to you first, Brandon. Why don't you give me your thoughts on him going to Philly and your thoughts on, if he's bought out, where he could help out?
That's a really good question. I just don't see it working in Philly. Even if he wanted to go there, which I don't see why he would, he's got enough playoff experience to step onto any team and obviously be productive, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. This is a guy that's a former NBA All-Star. He could average 20 points if he wanted to, and obviously can get some rebounds and be productive on the court. As of going to certain teams, I just feel like he just needs to go to a playoff team. I don't care if it's an 8th seed, a 5th seed, a 1st seed. I don't care if it's the Miami Heat, my Phoenix Suns. Go somewhere where he can be productive. Because Philly, that'd be interesting if he came to Phoenix, by the way. Philly's just in a bad spot. I hate to talk bad about Michael Carter-Williams' team, but it's just not working right now for them, so I don't see him going to a bad team. I just don't.
Michael, your thoughts on Granger?
Well, if you've watched any of our previous shows, you know how, close to home this hits for me, because I've always said that Danny Granger is probably one of the 10 most underrated players in the league today.
Yep.
And I think, having lived in PA, having been to Philly on a few occasions, I can see why he doesn't want to be there. That is not a knock on the city. It's just, with their teams being the way they are right now, it's not really a good spot. They're in the rebuilding mode. Obviously, Danny Granger wasn't going to be the right fit for them, although I would have been okay had he stayed there, since he would have been a piece that they probably would have been able to build around. But he hasn't really been able to prove himself as to be that guy yet. So he's probably going to end up – I could see him going to – I know I've heard Miami's a possibility, but I've also heard that Miami doesn't really want him at the same time. San Antonio's a spot. Look at maybe like a Western Conference team, like maybe a Phoenix where he comes in and plays with Dragic out there.
I don't mean to cut you off, Michael, but I think he needs to go to a team that hasn't already signed a trade for people. Obviously, the Heat and Pacers have. But go on. I'm sorry to cut you off.
True. No, that's all right. That was a fantastic interjection. Maybe even Atlanta, maybe like a 5-6 seed somewhere in there is a possibility. But I mean, with Philadelphia doing what they want to do, obviously they want to build around Michael Carter-Williams, and through the draft, I can see why it's gone. Danny Granger's probably got a family to think about. Philadelphia obviously wasn't the best place to be for him. In a way, I feel bad for Danny Granger because of the fact that he may have a family to feed and all that. But at the same time, I can't help but think
he's still getting paid, though. I mean, he's still got his money. His paycheck's still there. I mean, feeding his kids is kind of irrelevant.
But he plays professional basketball. He gets to do things that a lot of people dream about doing and don't. And he's kind of just like, well, I don't want to be here. If you have the ability to do it, do it. Just do it for the love of the game. It kind of seems like half of me thinks that he's not doing it for the love of the game anymore. But,
Well, I mean, it's tough. I think, I kind of feel for Granger in the respect that it does stink to go from a great contending type team to the basement. And Philly didn't make this move because they wanted to bring Danny Granger in. Let's face it, Philly made this move to get rid of Evan Turner. I thought it was a good move for the Pacers because Turner kind of brings something to the table. He's going to be able to score off the bench, something Indiana really lacked.
Right.
I think if I'm Granger, I think the best possible scenario, this is just my opinion, but I feel like if he can get the buyout in Philly and maybe land somewhere, and maybe he has to take a smaller paycheck than he would normally be accustomed to, but let's face it, he's often injured. He's getting up there in age. I think he's averaging 8 points a game this year. In 22 minutes, which is a low, but he's 30 years old at this point. He's going to be 31 in April. I just feel like maybe Memphis is a good spot. If Memphis believes that he can score the basketball, that's what they need, is a guy on the wing who has the confidence, who has the experience, and he doesn't play shabby defense. I think we got a little carried away a couple years ago when he was knocking LeBron over in the Eastern Conference playoffs when, people were saying he was such a great defender. I think he's serviceable for sure. And I think he could really take pressure off the bigs in Memphis with his shooting touch. Our last guy that we were going to talk about is another fellow who's not quite bought out yet, but they're talking. Actually, I read just last night, I think it was before I went to bed at some point, that they were nearing a buyout with Jimmer Fredette, the Sacramento Kings. We have a little more Kings talk later. Boogie, but for now we'll talk about Jimmer, the former BYU standout sharpshooter who really his game isn't making its transition into the NBA so well. I don't think anybody's shocked by that. But if Jimmer does, in fact, get bought out by the Kings, which is seeming like he might, where do you think is a good destination for this young man? Brandon.
First off, I've said it in past shows, and I've said it just in general. This is one reason why I wish the NBA would do, a certain rule with keeping players in college for a certain time, but that's another topic for another day.
Agreed.
First off, it's too bad for Jimmer that his career hasn't panned out. The guy could be solid. The guy could be, call me crazy, but he could be a Ray Allen type player in his future because obviously he's got that jump shot. He's just like Danny Granger and Glenn Big Baby Davis. This guy could be so productive elsewhere. I feel bad that he's had to sit basically on the bench for the Kings and not do much. I always wanted him to go to Utah because that's obviously where he was from. The fans wanted him. Don't know why they didn't pick him up. That's just a personal pick for me. But really, I feel like I was going to say that he should go to a playoff team, but I don't think he should right now because he has no playoff experience whatsoever. He just needs to go to a team where the system can work, he can get some minutes, and start being productive.
I think he needs to go to a young team versus a playoff team, like you were saying, Brandon, because I couldn't see, you could say what I heard somebody saying something about maybe he would fit in well with San Antonio, but I don't think he gets any minutes there. Popovich doesn't have time for a project. He doesn't play defense. He can't play defense. The Utah thing was, I like that you brought that up, but the Jazz were saying that they had no interest in signing him. Maybe I almost think about a team like a Philly, maybe, or something like that, a team who's in a full rebuild mode, who's not very good, because, Brandon, you said it, he doesn't really deserve to be placed on a playoff team.
Yep.
Get him in Philly. Get him a spot where he can get some minutes, perhaps. But that's,
You
that
can
might
shoot
be
all
for
day,
another
but
time.
that's not going to get you on a playoff team.
Absolutely. Michael, what are your thoughts on Jimmer? Can you teach me how to Jimmer? Can you teach me how to Jimmer?
No, I can't teach you how to Jimmer. And I honestly, I feel bad for the guy because I got into Jimmer mania when he was at BYU. I didn't have a shirt or anything, but I was glued to my TV set every once in a while. The 10th overall selection, it seemed like him and Sacramento were going to be the big fit because you had Paul Westphal right there, who was the big orchestrator of the 90s Suns teams and the Supersonics. That run and gun style was going to be right up Jimmer's alley, and then Jimmer is forced to watch Paul get fired 7 games in. Keith Smart comes in. Keith Smart's more of a my way or the highway type of guy. Doesn't really fit Jimmer's style, and he kind of, just got washed away there. Memphis is like in the bottom 3, I think it is, in three-point shooting when it comes to the NBA. They need a guy like Jimmer Fredette who's going to be, get some shots, which could also be a spot where he can get some playoff experience since he obviously doesn't have any. You look at the New York Knicks. I know it's a strange thing to talk about the New York Knicks here, but they might be in a future need for a guy that's going to be able to shoot since Raymond Felton's future is kind of up in the air right now. OKC could always, use some depth.
That'd be a nice backup.
And I also had Utah there. I mean, being a BYU guy, Utah's kind of a spot where he could fit, he could be close to home, and he could be a nice piece for them going forward with a guy like Trey Burke or somebody like that. But a couple other names to throw out there just, while we're here. Antoine Jameson is another guy that could also be bought out. I hear the Wizards could be possibly into him. And Beno Udrid could be leaving New York City. And the Spurs are also in talks of maybe looking at trying to add another guy like that.
Yeah, and I mean you bring up some good points. So let's run into our next topic, which is off the topic of buyouts, off the topic of any sort of mixing and matching of players to different teams. And this is kind of just straight news, and it's Rajon Rondo decided Saturday they went from LA to Sacramento to play the Kings Saturday night, and Rondo just decided, without permission from the team, that he would stay in LA to party it up for his 28th birthday. From what I'm reading, it's like the Celtics are in a position where they're like, we really know that we stink, and Rondo kind of is our superstar. We can't really say a lot. So they're kind of saying they're not taking this as a major issue, but they're still hoping to straighten things out with Rondo. Like, what does that mean? I don't even understand it. For me, if you're a player and you skip out on a game, this isn't practice. We're not talking about practice. We're talking about a game. If you skip out on a game, I mean, there should be consequences. I don't care if you're the best player on the team or the best player in the league. There has to be consequences for that, regardless of who they play. So we'll go to you first, Michael. How do you feel about Rondo just kind of saying, I'm not going to go play the Kings tonight. I'm going to stay here and party for my birthday?
If I were the Kings, I'd feel disrespected a little bit because, I mean, that was kind of like a complete, smack in the face of the entire, city of Sacramento. But I mean, he wasn't going to play anyway. It was a back-to-back game, and he usually sits on back-to-back games since he's still coming off that ACL tear. But Danny Ainge's direct quote was, "We'll handle this internally." Okay, yeah, sure. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I was reading the Boston Herald had a thing where they were talking to Rondo about it, and Rondo said before the loss to Utah, "We already talked about it. There's nothing to talk about anymore." Really,
well,
Rondo?
That's because he knows he's wrong.
This is huge news apparently right now, and you're like, "There's nothing to talk about." It kind of makes me think that you're kind of starting to lose respect for the entire organization since they're in a rebuilding mode. He's all you've got. I don't know if he really respects, new head coach Brad Stevenson. I mean, he did have his family with him, and I can understand that. But get this cleared, man. I know you're not going to play. But just because you're not going to play doesn't automatically give you the right to say, no, screw this, I'm not going to Sacramento, I'm going to stay in L.A. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Brandon, what are your thoughts on this Rondo skipping out on the trip to Sacramento?
Well, I applaud Michael because I was shaking my head the whole time during that. This situation really just kind of makes me chuckle. That's all the situation is. This is a chuckle. The only thing I'll give Rondo is, yeah, you weren't supposed to play. I understand that. But like you said, Andy, this isn't practice. This isn't like some media day stuff. This is a game. You are getting paid to be there. It just chuckles me. It's silly. In my opinion, and I know there's probably thousands, if not more, fans that would agree with me on this because this is just my personal opinion. I didn't want Rondo to be on the Celtics. I just didn't. I was like, I don't want this to continue. He needs to get out, especially after Garnett and Pierce left. It just baffles me. I mean, I feel like action should have been taken. And one more thing, what the heck is Danny Ainge doing? Like, show some discipline. Do something. And why are the talks being delayed? What's going on there? And like, you can't give him a call on the phone, be like, yo, what the heck happened? I don't know. It's just, it chuckles. It's funny.
Well, I think they're, it's a situation where they're hoping to re-sign Rondo to a longer deal or, at least keep him in Boston in some capacity versus having to get rid of him via trade. And, I feel like in that situation, they really want to keep the guy, so they don't want to ruffle his feathers. But I must note real quick, because I know Michael had another point to make, they did lose that game, too. Boston lost the game. I mean, whether Rondo was going to play or not, it's demoralizing to your team, especially a young, impressionable team. You have to show up. You're the team leader. You can't just – unless you're given permission, that is, which apparently he was not. You have to go. Michael, you have a last point on this?
Yeah, and it seems like this whole no discipline it's seemingly reaching across the West Coast, too, because Pau Gasol came out and said, we have no discipline here in Lakerland. So, if two of the NBA's most historic franchises are lacking discipline, what does that say about the culture there now and about the rest of the league? Correct. And again, Andy hit the nail on the head right here. You are the leader of the Boston Celtics right now, Rajon Rondo. Whether you just came off of an ACL injury or not, you be there for moral support to your team. You have to show these young guys, hey, this is how you do it now. This is what the NBA is like. This is what you have to do to take these steps. You've got to be the Paul Pierce now. Paul Pierce is gone. You have to be that guy now. If you can't be that guy, why are you there?
Yep.
Well, maybe he doesn't want to be there. So our next topic that we're going to scoot right into at this point is we talked about this the other day, Joe, Ray, Michael, and myself on our This Week in Sports show, and that's Raymond Felton. 21 gun salute. So Felton's staring down the barrel, pun intended, of a couple of felonies. I don't really care about the misdemeanor charge, the felonies of the unregistered guns. And this apparently, more of this has come out since we talked about it the other day, stems from a little domestic dispute of sorts on Valentine's Day where Rondo apparently threatened his wife with, soon-to-be ex-wife with the firearm. I think it was a pistol of some sort. But my biggest concern now is yesterday I saw a photo of Rondo going to court or coming out of court in a shirt that said, "We said love more, no war." And it looked like something that you would expect like an 80s soul performer to be wearing. It was bright and colorful. it was, or something you would expect to see from the movie Cool Runnings. But
I love that movie.
Raymond Felton, we talked about this the other day, so let's kind of keep it short. Michael, I'll let you go first. You said there was you had something more. There was a little bit of breaking news that's happened since the other day. So why don't you start us off on Felton?
Yeah, breaking bad news, I guess. Raymond Felton has been unleashed back into the world. He did make bail. No word though on if he's messing with Heidelberg and meth or anything like that. But
Blue
again,
sky.
this whole thing has been baffling to me. We don't know what his wife made, what his wife said to make Felton so mad. Maybe she's like, yeah, well, that's why I'm running away with Dirk because he hit that game winner. We don't know.
Stop
but
that.
There was no way. Reason.
Don't bring Dirk into this.
There was no reason for you to pull a gun on your wife, Raymond Felton. You went to North Carolina. The university alone has probably more academic standard than half of the entire West Coast university. It's ridiculous. You have a top-notch education. Why are you doing this? Why? And this isn't the first time this has happened. Remember I mentioned Gilbert Arenas
Some guy named Javaris Crittenden, you guys
That's your
may
boy.
have heard of in the news.
That's your boy.
Why do people feel the need to carry around unregistered guns? I'm all for you guys carrying around guns. That's cool. It's the Second Amendment. But why illegally? I don't
Especially in New York State. You've got to be a fool.
And they're so the laws up there are apparently really tight. And I mean, you really want to be the Plexico Burress of the NBA?
Well, let's get Brandon's thoughts on this, Michael, because you and I kind of tore this apart already the other day. Brandon, how do you feel about this Raymond Felton thing?
I mean, you guys, I watched the show like I told you guys. I watched it, and you guys already said everything there needs to say. I'm going to look at it through a different point of view, and I don't know if I'm avoiding anything here, but again, I'm going a totally different direction with this. But
in Arizona, you can carry like a bazooka on your shoulder, right?
Feels that way, yeah. I mean, there's some businesses that say no gun arms allowed, and people still walk in anyways. I'm like, I don't know how that works, but
that's cool.
I don't know. This just literally puts a stamp on the Knicks season. It's like game, set, and match. Like I said, I'm going a different direction. It's too bad because Raymond Felton, pretty productive point guard in the league, and now this happens, and now it needs to take his place and let it be. It just needs to kind of fade off into the night.
Into the night sky, a runaway train.
I was a fan of his in Charlotte. When he played in Charlotte, I was
exactly.
like, hey, this is finally a good move that Michael Jordan has actually done for this organization.
Yep.
And then he
ate was letting him go. Yeah, that was.
He ate like his.
By the way, I don't mean to talk
and
bad about Knicks. I know how passionate Knicks fans are. I was just making a point that.
It's okay. We all talk bad about the Knicks. So let's jump into our last topic here. We're getting close to the time mark here, but the last one happened last night, and this one's kind of near and dear to my heart because I'm a big DeMarcus Cousins fan myself. I'm starting to get to the point where I need to wash my hands clean of this guy at some point here.
No.
Cousins last night I guess we can call it a questionable foul against Dwight Howard, although, from watching it over and over again, I feel like it was a foul. It was one of those little, things you probably get away with 100 times in the game. He just kind of extended the elbow into Howard's stomach, groin area as Howard was dunking. The big issue is the fact that Howard was in the air dunking. Safety, 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 guys. If you haven't realized this yet, we talked about the home plate collisions in baseball. Safety, safety. The NFL with their, the defenseless receiver stuff. Sports are being tailor-made around safety these days. When a guy's in the air going for a dunk, especially a player who's considered a star in this league, you can't do that. And that was just, kind of silly by Cousins. And then he kind of blew up. I thought the first technical was kind of out of order. I didn't understand. But again, I wasn't on the court. I don't know what he said. Then he gets the second, gets ejected. Looks like he's going to kill people. And that's where I kind of drew the line. You can't do that. You have to, as a professional athlete, you get a couple tees, walk away, throw your headband, that's fine. But don't look like, people look legitimately afraid that he was going to hurt that referee. And I might add right quick before I kick it to you guys that was his 15th technical. Gets one more and he's suspended for a game. And I guarantee you within 3 weeks he has that 16th technical. So we'll go to you first, Brandon. And what do you feel about DeMarcus Cousins overall and what happened last night?
He has $1 million body but a 10-cent head. That's just DeMarcus Cousins. I'm a DeMarcus Cousins fan as well. I think I've said it in one of our past videos, or I've talked to people. This guy could be the best center in the league, and I'm talking over Dwight Howard. I am claiming that now. But it's just not happening right now. He is going to get that 16th technical foul. I did see the video, and I saw what happened. Coming from the safety points from the referees, I get that. But this is NBA basketball. Let the guys play. And down here in Phoenix, man, it seems like you can't touch anywhere here without, it's like you can't even blow on the guy. You can't touch him with your finger without being called for a foul. Again, the safety aspect I understand. Overall, I'm a huge DeMarcus Cousins fan. The referee did what he did. DeMarcus Cousins will get that 16th technical foul. And hopefully sooner or later he can get his head right. Maybe it's a coaching thing. Maybe it's a management thing that, they need to get some new people in there and fix DeMarcus and go from there. So hopefully he can get a clean start, really, if you will, a clean start for him.
He needs to spend more time being DeMarcus and less time being Boogie is really the issue.
And real
Michael,
quick, if I will, as of him wanting, as you said, wanting to kill the referee, I can kind of see the blow up. I mean, we've all played sports before. People get mad, but you do need to, like you said, take off your headband, throw it, take off your jersey or something, just walk off, get out of there. To an extent, though.
Especially when you have a history of this stuff, too, because it's just going to keep... And that's probably what got him the first technical, because, like I said, and a lot of people have been wondering, like, where did the first technical come from? Well, I mean, he has an established reputation, and it's not a good one, so it's easier for him to earn a technical, in my opinion. Michael, your thoughts?
Well, guilty by association is a serious killer. I mean, I kept watching the video earlier this morning, too, and I'm like, that is the weakest foul I've seen probably in the last, probably it's all season. It was one of those, I understand it, but at the same time, Sacramento's down by like 30 at this point.
Just let them play.
Why humiliate them even more? Eventually, on a side note of this game, James Harden drops 43 in 3 quarters, and the Rockets are up like 104-77 after 3. Yep. So you're already down by like 60-something. You've got no DeMarcus Cousins. I don't know what referee Courtney, whatever the heck his last name was, said, but the fact that his first name was Courtney was just interesting to me. I don't know what was said between the two. I don't really care. The fact of the matter is DeMarcus Cousins took a page from Richard Sherman, Marcus Smart, all of that. They all just need to cool down. Really, there's no point in blowing up. I get it. You were angry. I get that. But you have, again, with discipline, you have to show a message to the rest of your team that this is how you have to do this. If you start popping off at guys like that, getting technical foul after technical foul, what does that show to the rest of your team? That
trying to fight Sean Elliott?
Yeah, that's not cool either. Just cool down, man. If you got to see a sports psychologist about this whole thing, I get it. You're 23 years old. I was there too. I was there a couple weeks ago.
Well, we know this can get turned around.
That, but
I mean, we did see a guy I'd like to compare him to in some respects, because he is a big guy too, is Zach Randolph. He had troubles early on when he was with Portland and when he was with the Knicks. Though Cousins hasn't actually punched anybody yet, but Randolph,
it's coming. It's coming.
Randolph's punched a few people. I mean, he punched Lou Amundsen in a game.
Yeah, I've been against my Phoenix Suns, actually.
Yeah, against the Suns, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was against the Suns, I'm pretty sure. At least, it was. And, I mean, he punched teammates in altercations. I think he got into an altercation with Ruben Patterson in Portland. But just chill Boogie. Don't, if Randolph, and I like Randolph. He's a feel-good story for a guy like Boogie, because he's turned it around, and he's become, one of the better power forwards in the NBA, and led Memphis to, some good runs in the playoffs. And he hasn't had any altercations in a while. He's not even a guy that's on my technical radars anymore. I don't know how many he's had in the past few seasons, but I don't think he's in the top few guys. So Boogie, you got to stop being Boogie. Yeah. Be DeMarcus, man. Let's chill.
This kind of reminds me of, I know this is going throwback a little bit, and even in a different sport. Brian Bosworth, when the Boz came out in the Zubaz and the weird hair and everything, he was so in his own personality that 24/7 he was Boz, and he got so bozzed out that when he tried to Boz Bo Jackson shouldered him. And I think that's what DeMarcus Cousins needs. DeMarcus Cousins needs a Bo Jackson type of somebody in the NBA to just bulldoze the hell out of him.
I don't know how that's going to work, though, because I think that was kind of where this we call it a ticky-tack foul, but the fact of the matter is he and Dwight Howard were banging last night. I mean, there was one point where Howard had to leave the game, and they were both a little shook up when they collided with knees. But it was physical between those two. And I agree with Brandon. You're talking two of the premier centers in the league. But I don't know if there's a guy out there who intimidates Boogie Cousins. I just don't know. I think what he really needs is he needs either Sacramento to bring in some sort of leadership, because it's not Rudy Gay, it's not Isaiah Thomas, it's certainly not DeMarcus. Or he needs to go somewhere where he can have leadership.
Jimmer Fredette. It's not Jimmer Fredette.
Or Jimmer Fredette. I always thought, like, last season, a good swap for me would have been, like, a Blake Griffin for Cousins. Obviously, that was never going to happen. But a guy playing for a guy like Chris Paul would have benefited Cousins. I think you wouldn't have seen him pulling that where he grabbed Isaiah Thomas. Actually, it was with Chris Paul. He wouldn't let him shake his hand. But just calm down, Cousins. But I feel like that's all we have for today. This was a great show. I'd like to thank Michael and I'd like to thank Brandon for tuning in. Final thoughts, guys?
Go ahead, Michael.
Where's our curveball, Andy?
There is no curveball.
What?
I mean, this kind of feels like a curveball now. Neither of you want to answer.
Well, no, I was going to let you go first, Michael. But final thoughts, big DeMarcus Cousins fan. I'm glad to be back on the show for the third week in a row. I'm scared for my Suns because it's like you lose one game in the playoff, or you lose one game in the season, and you drop down 2 rows. So those are my final thoughts.
Ooh, okay, final thought right here. Pau Gasol, if you really want out of Lakerland, go.
Bye out.
Go.
Ain't buying that out. All right, I'd like to. My final thought is head on over to www.sports-kings.com. Check out all the work of our writers. That Phoenix Sports Kings is going to launch right around the 1st of March. Make sure you check them out. You can see Brandon's work along with all the other fellas over there. I want to urge you guys to subscribe to our page if you love the NBA, if you love, we talk football, we talk other things, we talk general sports. Subscribe to us. There's the logo once again, since I'm good at finding it these days. Have a great day.